For years, the deal seemed simple. Win or stay human. Pick one. Chase greatness and you pay for it in people. What if that was never true? What if the trade-off was always a lie? And the two were meant to rise together. Hello, friends, and welcome to I Know I Belong When, an innovation, unbiased production where bold voices, curious stories, and authentic impact amplify knowing that you are invited, seen, heard, and needed. Our conversations go from the boardrooms to the break rooms, from the sidewalks to our living rooms, from our relationships to ourselves. We explore the full spectrum of belonging, the joy of being seen, the pain of being left out, and the courage it takes to build spaces where every identity is welcomed, valued, and loved. We also hold space for each of our unique identities to joyfully prosper and thrive. I am your host, Christopher Bylone, someone who believes knowing you belong is a birthright. There is a story that we tell ourselves about high-performance environments, that winning costs you the people, that speed costs you the soul, that you can build something great or you can build something human. Pick one. Today's guest has spent more than 15 years in human resources, most recently inside the sports industry, proving the choice itself was a lie. Meet Kate McKinnon. Kate is an HR executive, coach, and founder of Kate McKinnon HR Solutions. For more than 15 years, including her tenure as head of human resources at Playfi Sports, where she has been building people-first cultures inside some of the most pressure-cooked environments in business. Under her watch, Playfi was named both Most Loved Workplace and one of the best employers in sports. Read that twice. Most loved and best in sports. Those two phrases do not usually share a sentence. Today, she partners with leaders on executive coaching, leadership development, and a culture strategy. In the same week, she sits down with the people the workplace tends to overlook in transition: recent graduates, former athletes, and veterans. Her signature, From Classroom to Career Bootcamp, and her upcoming book are aimed squarely at the gaps she watched too many sharp people fall into. A few other things worth knowing. She is a Bar 3 member, which means when she announces she's going to the bar in the morning, she now has to clarify which one. She has volunteered with wildlife on more than one continent. She has once tried trapeze in the Bahamas with her sister. Her one-line review: way harder than it looks. A reminder that the best people in this work do not separate performance from humanity. They build both at once. Kate, welcome to I Know I Belong When.
Thank you so much for having me. That was maybe the best intro I've ever had.
Well, I'm just reading what you put on paper. You developed it yourself. So it's just a culmination of a wonderful career. And thank you so much for being here. I do really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Alrighty, Kate, let's dive into this conversation.
Yeah.
So you have spent more than 15 years inside of sports and high performance environments. You've built workplaces where people refuse to leave. For the leader listening right now who believes performance and humanity are a trade-off, what is the lie they have been sold?
Performance and humanity are a trade-off. I think if you are working in an environment where you have humans that you work with, you have to consider humanity as part of the plan. And it is certainly not a trade-off. I think people that feel like they're equipped to be their best selves and utilize their talents and learn new things, they're going to be more indebted to your organization. So they go hand in hand.
So dive into that more. One of the things I would always laugh about in my HR career is that we would always we have to put the human inside of human resources. It seems so cliche. So why is something that seems so 101 something that's the hardest to do?
I think because people's attention is split among so many things now, and organizations are doing more with less. And I think as a result of that, the people piece, the humanity piece, the individual consideration piece just falls to the back burner. Most organizations that I work with say they care about it. They want
Mm.
to make people happy. They want to have a best places to work badge on their social media, but the work really comes into the work. I mean, it takes a lot of work to create a workplace where people feel valued and heard and considered, and it also takes money. And so I think when you look at organizations and you look at what they're spending their money on, that really says all you need to know about where their priorities lie.
Yeah, because a budget is a value statement, right? Look where people are spending money and they'll tell you what they value. So just look at our own society and how we pay our teachers versus our sports
Mhm.
folks. Oh,
So true.
just tells you what we value in society, right? Budget is
Yeah.
what tells you what you value. Put your money
Mhm.
where your mouth is, as I like to say, right?
Yep.
Okay. So on the show, we say names because
Mm.
names are really important. As everybody knows, I am Christopher, never Chris. And so, Kate, you share your name with one of the most recognized comedians of our generation. So tell us about your name. Where did it come from? What does it mean to be the Kate McKinnon who is not on screen, who is instead has spent 15 years quietly making workplaces more human?
Usually it means that I'm like a huge disappointment to anybody who thinks that they're that they're getting the other Kate McKinnon. I am the first. I am, I think, 7 or 8 years older than the more famous version.
Own that. Own that.
Yeah, oh, I fully do. I am not as funny and I do not have as much money, but I am older. But yeah, I think so. My
She needs
name
to pay you
actually,
royalties.
I agree. Yes, let's put that out there. Yeah. So my name, before Kate McKinnon came onto the scene, the other Kate McKinnon, I spent really my whole life letting people know that I'm just Kate. I'm not Catherine. I'm not
Mm.
Caitlin. I'm just Kate. My mother and father actually named me after Kate Hepburn because they liked the shortness of it. They liked the classic nature of the name. And so my name was lengthened. So anybody that knew me sort of before college still calls me Katie, which
Mm.
not my name, just stuck. And so my name is just Kate. And I actually love that I get the sort of attention from having the same name as the Saturday Night Live version. I actually did not change my name when I got married, specifically for that reason. So I embrace it. I love it. When I make reservations at restaurants, people are just understandably very disappointed when I walk in and they're like, oh, I'm like, I know. I already know. It's fine.
It's okay, but it probably got you first place on the list. When somebody sees
Yeah.
Kate McKinnon on the registration list, they're like, "Ooh, wait, we need to make sure
Yeah.
we're catering to her." So, hey, everything has a privilege, right?
You got it. You got it.
As long as we use our privilege for good, that's all that matters, right? Okay, so let's talk about the moment you knew you belonged.
Mhm.
So, not a season, not a chapter, a specific moment. Where were you? Who was in the room? What was the signal that told you in your bones that you were exactly where you needed to be?
I have to say that it's maybe a little bit unconventional because it wasn't a public moment where
Mm.
I felt like I really knew that I belonged. It was when I started my business. There was a very clear moment when I was having a conversation with somebody virtually about something that was very sort of, I was very sensitive about, and I found myself tearful on the call, which is something that spending your, life in HR, you really don't have the opportunity to sit there and cry with people on a regular basis. When that's
That's
something like
true.
something really touches you, it's very challenging in HR to hold it together, especially with some of the things that people talk to you about. But I was finding myself very emotional, and the individual said, "Oh, it's okay if you feel like you have to cry. You can just cry." And I just lost it on this call with this potential client. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is the first time I felt like I can actually be myself. And they became a
Mm.
client, and it was, they really appreciated that I was able to be vulnerable with them. And I remember getting off the phone and standing up and saying, "Oh my gosh, this really just feels like me. This feels like I can be authentically myself and I can bring things that maybe, in my career in HR and in my career on the executive side of it, vulnerability and empathy and emotion can really be listed as a weakness and can be
Mm-hmm.
exploited as a weakness. And I've always been super sensitive and super empathetic and very much feel what people bring. And so to know that I'm in a place and a space right now where I can be myself and I can really help others also be themselves is really for me like that day just did it.
That's wonderful. And it shows that you're human, right?
Yes.
Again, what we did you talk about at the top of the show, putting human inside of human resources, right? And so
Yeah.
allowing you the space to be your authentic self. And
Mhm.
I don't think being in touch with your emotions is weak. I think
I
it
don't
actually
either.
makes you stronger, right?
Yes.
So, what did that moment teach you about belonging that you could not have learned in any other way?
I think for me, it's very hard when you're in a role and in a job, in a career path where you have to put, I would say, a wall between you and the people that you're serving. And not, don't come to me wall, because I think everybody that I've worked with would say that I'm pretty easy to come to and have conversations with. But for me, an emotional wall, not allowing myself to get too attached to anybody, because as a head of HR, you may have to let somebody go, or you may have to engage in a disciplinary process, and that can be really challenging. Or not showing emotion when everybody else is riled up and your job is to calm the troops, rally the troops. And for me, it really helped me learn that leaning into my vulnerability and really being safe to do that is so important, and highlighted how many people don't feel that way, how many people don't feel the ability to be themselves or to feel like they're in a safe place where they can express themselves, which I've always known. I've always been the person that coalesces people to be able to do that. But it was the first time I really felt the ability to do that myself. It gave me the energy to really pour more into other people to allow them to feel like they can fully be themselves.
That's really beautiful. And so, when you're thinking about how folks can be themselves fully, when you see it in real time, what's the feeling inside you have?
Oh my gosh. I just don't think that there's anything better than having somebody let their guard down and feel as though you're not in judgment of them and that they can be themselves and that they can express themselves. It just feels so good to enable other people to do that. And I think everybody should feel as though they can be their full selves. Everybody should feel like they can bring that to relationships and conversations and the workplace.
Yeah. And I think for me, when you saying this, what's calling to mind is my own moment when I can be my full self, right? When I can be that person who is teary eyed or is super excited. And sometimes people aren't prepared for the super excitement. And so they get caught off guard a little bit by it. But hey, bringing your full authentic self to work.
Yeah.
So now I do want us to talk about the flip side of belonging. It would not be the I Know I Belong When podcast if we did not talk about your moment where you did not belong. So, where in the room that made it clear in words or silence that you were on the outside of something? What happened, and what did you feel in your body when it landed that way?
Yeah, I would be lying if I said that there weren't more than one example that I could give you. I think, unfortunately, in society and in the workplace and just in general, that's a very real feeling that many, many people experience. But there was an event at a former company that I had worked for years ago. And I had to make a decision between going to a sort of separate dinner with the executives or staying behind with the training team that we had assembled, about 200 participants that were coming to this training about leadership development. And we had worked to put this event together. And I said, I don't feel like going to that executive dinner is what I should be doing right now. I feel like what I should be doing is staying back and having the dinner that we prepared for these guests of this training and really meeting everybody face to face and being a part of that. And so I made the decision to stay behind, did not think anything of it. And when the executives came back from this dinner, they were clearly very, very disappointed that I had made that
Mm,
decision and that I was no longer considered to be somebody that was like a part of that group. And I was actually disciplined for it. I was pulled aside and told that that was a bad look, that I should have accepted the invite with the executives, and that it was a very clear decision on my part. And
mm,
I said, yeah, yeah, it was a clear decision. I didn't think it was something that would be looked at in this negative way. I actually thought it was a positive decision that I made, but it was very clear that was the wrong decision for me.
mm,
And from that point forward, I was very much treated as an outsider of this group. How did I feel about it? I was devastated. I felt like I hadn't done anything wrong. I felt as though that was a good decision to be with this group of people that we'd pulled in from all across the country. And I thought that my attention was needed there. And so I very much felt a part or felt as though I was not a part of things going forward. And that's a horrible feeling, especially when,
mhm.
it's like you're making a choice between going along with executives versus staying back with the rest of the people in the organization. I would do it again in a second, even though it was it was a really hard lesson for me, but it was a really valuable lesson for me because throughout my career, I've had to make decisions like that, and I've never not stayed true to what I think is the right thing in that moment, and that was the beginning of me being able to make those hard decisions and know that if it feels right to me, then that's okay, and I'm okay with the
Mm.
consequences of it.
Yeah, and I think it's about you were choosing to show your humanity to the people that were doing the work, right? And how many times do we see this over and over again where there's the one group of people that get this dinner and then there's
Mhm.
the special people over here that get that dinner and there's
Yeah.
always this divide, right? And how much more powerful would it have been for those executives to spend the time with the guests and interact and talk about humanity in the way that we would need it to and show that we're all humans. That just because we have different titles, we are
Mhm.
in different pay bands, does not make us any better than anybody else.
Yes, to all of that.
Yes. So, what did that moment teach you about exclusion inside the workplace, and particularly in environments that are built on competition and performance?
I think I was maybe a bit naive before that moment where I thought that exclusion happened as almost like a byproduct or that it happened as the result of a circumstance, not necessarily as a result of a choice. And that moment made me really realize that, oh, this is a choice to elevate yourselves above the rest of the employees in this event. And that really surprised me. And I think it was the first time I really saw that. I recognize, I have a lot of privilege and feel very fortunate to be in that space. But I've also had a lot of situations in my life that where I have been excluded from things or I have had
Mm,
challenging situations. So I've always been very empathetic and trying to bring people together. But it made me recognize that if you allow people to make those choices to exclude others, people that naturally will exclude others will make that choice. And so for me, for my career, it's been really important to enable people to have other choices, be able to naturally include people even when it might be hard for them. So setting up structures and programs that encourage bringing more people to the table is something that I'm really passionate about.
I think it's widening the pie, right? Adding
Mhm.
more people and making sure that people know that even though they might have felt excluded before, how are we making sure that we are decreasing that exclusion? And
Mhm.
so, how do you navigate through it though? How does that experience shape the way that you coach leaders today who may unknowingly be creating the same moment that they created for you that they're creating for their own organization?
Yeah, I think a lot of it goes back to active listening. So with my clients and people that I'm coaching, I really want to understand not only just what the behavior is, but the why behind the behavior. And then still, I don't take that at face value. I still like to dig a little bit deeper. I find that a lot of times it is behavior that is either modeled or taught, and those things can be unlearned if somebody is willing to do the work. And so really calling out, what are the challenges? Where are they showing up? Why do you feel as though certain people are the other and this other side is the group that you're more inclined to bring along with you? And so doing that work is important. And then I think also helping people that feel as though they are excluded, helping them speak more confidently about their achievements, about the things that they bring to the world, because I think what happens is once you feel like you're the other, once you feel excluded, you tend to shrink in response to that. And so,
Mm.
how do you really own who you are and what you have to offer? Because the reality is that the best companies that I've ever worked for are those that consider diverse perspectives, diverse points of view, because ultimately, your customers are diverse. Your customers
Yep.
are coming from all over. So unless you're a super elite product that doesn't speak to the masses, you really should have your inner company reflect who you're serving externally. And so I think it makes you a stronger company to bring everybody into the table.
So, beyond bringing everybody into the table, what is the one thing you would want leaders to know about how to build a culture of belonging for their organization?
Well, I think that when organizations are thinking about diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, I always start with the inclusion and belonging first. Because I think if you have an organization that is inclusive, where everybody feels that they belong, that their ideas are taken seriously, the rest can be built. I think belonging helps people be their best self. It helps them be their best performers. And so, certain things like what does your hiring practice look like? How are you getting talent? How are you interviewing? What types of questions are you asking? Are you refraining from bias during your interview process? What does succession planning look like? What are the behaviors behind your value system that people need to demonstrate? And, I say pretty frequently that a culture is only as good as the worst behavior the leadership is willing to tolerate. And at the end of the day, if you have a top performer that's engaging in behavior that shows that people don't belong or they're not included, and you're okay with it because they're bringing in the numbers, then that is a crack in your foundation. And so for me, it's really looking at all of those systems. If an organization truly wants to be one of belonging and inclusion, looking at all of the processes and systems that support their entire employee life cycle is one of the key things that I like to focus on.
Yeah, that's really important. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so
Yes.
I have a fun little bonus question before we start to wrap this show up. You have famously attempted trapeze in the Bahamas with your sister. If you could pick one more wildly impractical adventure, zero promise of grace, what would it be and who's going with you?
I would bring my sister again because there is nothing that we find funnier than watching the other person embarrass themselves. So it makes for a good audience and also full support of whatever ridiculousness. There's so many, but it almost always involves like wildlife or something. So I have on my list to go trekking in Uganda,
Ooh,
gorilla trekking specifically. And that would be, I think, the one thing that I would do.
okay. That sounds awesome. Please sign me up for that.
Yes. Yes, anything with animals. We've done quite a few animal related adventures, and we've held and fed kangaroos and lions and bears and monkeys and
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah,
That's
just
so
like give me all
cool.
the wildlife.
Okay. Hey, I'm here for it all. I'm here for it all. That's why I live in the mountains, because I get to see the wildlife on the daily, right? Deer in my front yard,
Yeah.
bear in my driveway. We were on a walk the other day and saw a porcupine.
Oh,
So just so really cool. Yeah, had to quickly get the dogs on the leash so they didn't go mess with the porcupine.
oh
Uh,
yeah.
that would have
That's a
been a
bad injury.
That would have been a bad experience. Okay, Kate, call to action. I want people to leave this show knowing something that they can do better. So give us one specific thing a listener could do this week to make their workplace just a little bit more human. Not a strategy, not a framework, a one concrete action they could take in the next 48 hours.
Give other people grace. If somebody comes to you, or if you hear something from somebody, or somebody makes a mistake, just recognize that this is a piece of what they're focused on, that everybody has things going on. Just give people a little grace. Assume positive intent. Don't assume that that text thread or that Slack message meant something horrible. Don't like assign a narrative to it. Just take it for face value and reach out to the person that you're talking to and say, hey, what did you mean by this? Or, hey, I have a question about this, instead of just automatically jumping to this person's a horrible person and they meant to attack me.
Giving people grace. I think we also have to remember to give ourselves grace, because sometimes we don't do that enough, and that we're human. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to say the wrong thing, or we're just going to screw something up, and just give yourself grace, and that you can do better next time.
That's right.
Okay, so we're coming to the end of this recorded conversation. Kate, your entire career has been about proving that performance and humanity belong in the same sentence. You have built the workplaces, you have coached the leaders, you make the case for the room. However, this is your moment. No framework, no title, no resume, just you finishing the sentence that closes our show. I know I belong when
I can bring my full self to something and empower others to do the same.
Bring your full self to something and empower others to do the same. That is just the crux of the show. So, Kate, thank you so much for being here and sharing your grace with us over this last 30 minutes. I do truly appreciate you. This has been a great reminder that belonging is not a destination. It is a practice, and it starts with listening. Friends, if this episode challenged you to move outside your comfort zone, please follow our show and give us that 5-star review you know you want to give, and add a comment about what you will do to champion a culture of belonging. These actions will help to amplify the message to others so they too can find their own moment of belonging. Whether it is navigating the complexities of workplace culture, finding acceptance in a new school, building trust in a local community, or forging identities within our own families, these stories reflect the raw, honest, and unfiltered journeys each of us take every day. And we want to hear from you. Finish the sentence, I know I belong when, and send us a voice note. Your story could open a future episode. Thank you for listening. Know that your bold, authentic self is welcomed, valued, and loved. And until next time, remember, you belong here.